What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. So today was day 2 of Packers OTAs. Day 2 that was open to the media. The Packers have been practicing the last week and then also this week, but this was the second session open to the media. So today we're going to go over the biggest takeaways and everything that happened during the practice today. I just released a video on the highlights from today's practice during the warm-up session. So if you do want to go watch that and see some of the highlights, there's some really cool clips. I really suggest you go watching that video. Just click the link right above to go watch that one. But like I said, in this video, we're going to be going over everything that happened mainly in the Packers 11 versus 11s during today's practice, because you're not allowed to film during those things. So I got all this information off of Twitter to shout out to the people tweeting about today's practice that are actually at today's practice. I'll leave their Twitter accounts down in the description below. The next OTA open to the media is June 6th, so that'll be next Tuesday, and then that's pretty much the end of OTAs, and we'll have to wait all the way till training camp, where a lot of sessions are open to the media. So on this channel, every day the Packers practice. That goes for OTAs into training camp and all that. That is open to the media, and there is stuff that comes out from highlights to updates on the practice. That'll all be here right on this channel. So if you're new here, I'd really suggest clicking the subscribe button and also turning on post notifications so you never miss any of these videos and stay really up to date with the Packers this offseason. It's a very interesting offseason. The transition from Aaron Rodgers to Jordan Love, it's an offseason that we're not used to, and I do believe it's really important to stay up to date with everything. Firstly, I want to start with the players that returned since the last OTA last week. That was open to the media. There was a few players that weren't there, and a few of those players that returned, one of which being David Bakhtiari. Elgton Jenkins also returned, Donald Levitt, and Preston Smith. So 3 very important starters. Then also a core special teamer returned today. Not at practice. Jair is still not there. Rasul is still not there. Nixon wasn't there, but he was there last week, so I don't know if that's injury related or personal. It still is voluntary, so in theory he could simply just not want to show up. But really excited for Keyshawn Nixon going into this next season, as I think he's going to be the starting slot cornerback in this defense. And then also John Garvin, still not at OTAs. He did this last year. I still don't understand why this guy doesn't show up to OTAs. Yes, they're voluntary. He has every right to sit out of it, but the guy's a fringe roster player, and I still don't see him making the roster, even if he were to come to OTAs. So you'd think he would at least try to give it his all to try to make this roster in a very, I would say open edge room to start this season, considering we don't know when Rashawn Gary's going to be back. So if there was ever a time for him to make the roster, it would be now. So you'd kind of expect him to show up to OTAs, but he didn't for whatever reason. And players rehabbing on the sideline. Rashawn Gary still on the sideline rehabbing. Of course, nice to see him there moving around. Jake Hansen, Grant DeBoe still on the sidelines, and new additions to players rehabbing from whatever injuries. There's really no updates. Is Tay Wicks, Tucker Kraft, and Devontae Wyatt. So they were practicing the last time we saw their OTAs, but they weren't today. They were rehabbing on the side. Like I said, there's no real update what those injuries are. They're likely very minor and just precautionary. They're not doing team portions of today's practice. As for the starting team on offense to start team drills today, obviously Jordan Love was quarterback 1, Aaron Jones was running back 1. As for the wide receivers, it was Christian Watson and Romeo Doubs on outside, and Jayden Reed starting in the slot. So when I talk about Jayden Reed, I talk about him being the day 1 slot starter for the Green Bay Packers, and it's not the only thing he can do. Jayden Reed can play outside, can play in the slot. We saw that at Michigan State. He did both, very well and very consistently, even though their offense really wasn't good last year. He can also be their jet motion guy, and I believe the Packers will use him as that. So Jayden Reed already, as early as OTAs, being a starter in this offense, very, very promising there. Josiah DeGuara started at tight end, but a lot of looks to Luke Musgrave today. Luke Musgrave had a good day, so we'll talk about him here in a second. But DeGuara got the official, so-call-it, start at tight end, but he's more of an H-back guy anyway, so I don't think that's too much to read into. As for the offensive line, it was David Bakhtiari at left tackle, Elgton Jenkins at left guard, Josh Myers at center, John Runyon Jr. at right guard, and Zach Tom at right tackle. And I feel like that right there is going to be the week 1 starting offensive line. I feel like those 5 are the best 5 offensive linemen on this team. Some could argue that Josh Nijman is a better offensive lineman than Josh Myers, so if that is the case, then you maybe bump Zach Tom into center and Josh Nijman at right tackle if you believe those are the best 5. But nonetheless, Zach Tom deserves to be on this starting offensive line, which he was today at right tackle. Caleb Jones was rotating in at left tackle for David Bakhtiari, and Josh Nijman was rotating in at right tackle for Zach Tom. As for the starting defense today, since Devontae Wyatt was out, 4th round selection Colby Wooden out of Auburn started on the defensive line with TJ Slayton and Kenny Clark, so he got a lot of looks today. As for the linebackers at edge, it was Justin Hollins, and Preston Smith. So Preston Smith returned, and Justin Hollins got the start with the ones today over Enigbari. They're likely just rotating all these guys in and out to see, you know, what kind of look they're going to give to start the season, with Rashawn Gary most likely not playing to start the season. We'll see. Even if he does, it's going to be on a pitch count, and they'll likely have to start someone else anyways. I think it's going to be Enigbari, but giving Justin Hollins snaps with the ones is also important. The middle linebackers, Quay Walker did return, so he was starting next to Devondre Campbell, of course. As for the cornerbacks, still a light room, so the starting cornerbacks, the two outside guys, this was in a base defense, was Corey Ballantyne and Shamar Jean-Charles, and as for the safeties, it was still Darnell Savage and Rudy Ford. Now going over the main takeaways on offense, and mainly how Jordan Love looked in today's practice. Similarly to the last OTA that was open, there was a little bit of inconsistency. Last OTA, Jordan Love kind of started very slow, but ended very hot during the red zone portions. Today, there was some lows and there was some highs, but Jordan Love looked a lot better in the short passing game, primarily with slant routes to some of the wide receivers, such as Jaden Reed, Samori Toure, Romeo Doubs, and then also tight end Josiah DeGuara. Jordan Love had very nice timing today with wide receiver Romeo Doubs, so nice to see them starting to build that rapport. Doubs going into his second year, obviously, Romeo Doubs and Christian Watson are going to be number 1 and 2 wide receiver, and they're going to have to be on the same page as Jordan Love, and they're starting to build that. So it's not going to be all perfect just to start. You know, they got to start building that rapport, getting on the same page. Love found Doubs multiple times today in 11v11s. And as I said, with inconsistency, Jordan Love also had some bad plays today. He threw a deep double coverage ball to Romeo Doubs, and it ended up in a Darnell Savage interception. So great for Savage, not great for Jordan Love in the offense. He overthrew Jaden Reed on a would-be touchdown off a corner route. And another pick six was dropped by Corey Ballantyne. Jordan Love pretty much threw it directly into his hands, but he ended up dropping it. So again, an inconsistent day for Jordan Love, another up and down day, but that should be expected. Like, this is going to happen most of the offseason. He's going to have very hot days where, you know, Jordan Love is lighting it up in practice. And there's going to be some days where he, you know, isn't doing too hot in practice and doesn't play too well in practice. But this is going through the process, going through the transition of Aaron Rodgers to Jordan Love. It's not going to be seamless, right? He's a first-year starter with a very young and very new offense. But nonetheless, I love being a part of the process and seeing how this is all going. 6th round draft selection, Sean Clifford, quarterback out of Penn State, had a nice few throws today as well. A couple to Malik Heath and also Deuce Watts. So he's fighting for that backup role at quarterback between him and Danny Etling. And then, as I said earlier, tight end Luke Musgrave had a very nice day today. He had a lot of action over the middle and is looking like a true receiving threat tight end so far as advertised. Of course, it's no pads today. It's only helmet, so you can only take so much away from it, but you can't deny his frame at 6'6", 255 pounds and the speed and what he looks like on the field. He does look like he could be a very big mismatch for this offense. Moving on to the main defensive takeaways today. As I said, Devonte Wyatt was out, so rookie Colby Wooden got a lot of looks with the ones today, so it's very important to start seeing him, you know, getting onto that defensive line and into that rotation with the number ones. And as I also said earlier, Quay Walker returned to the starting lineup after missing 11v11's last portions in the OTA, so gladly not a significant injury there. He was likely just, you know, out as precautionary. That's kind of the case with OTAs. You don't want to rush guys in there if you don't really need to, but he did return during this practice. And then also rookies Lucas Van Ness and Carl Brooks had really nice days rushing the passer. Overall, the rookies on defense had a very nice day. Lucas Van Ness beat Josh Nijman on a textbook pressure and a would-be sack, and Carl Brooks also had a would-be sack on Sean Clifford. As I was talking about Jordan Love earlier, Darnell Savage did have an interception today. He got another start at safety and is looking like he will be starting at safety next to Rudy Ford, at least to start this offseason. I think they really like Tarvarius Moore and Jonathan Owens, and there's going to be a lot of rotation there, and there's going to be some practices where Rudy Ford and Darnell Savage aren't with the ones at safety. I think there's going to be a lot of rotation there, and the Packers should do that. They need to evaluate the safety talent, and you know, I'm a huge Darnell Savage supporter. As of late, I've kind of been not so much on board with him starting just because of what we saw last year, and he got plenty of opportunity, but I also think he can be utilized a lot better. And like I said, I'm a big supporter of him, and I would love for him to turn it around. I would love for him to bounce back and have a great season at safety, because this year, more than ever, the Packers need that at safety. And also, is another very light cornerback room today with Rasul, Jair, and Nixon out. The first 3 cornerbacks in that room, all starting guys, all out today. Obviously, Eric Stokes still recovering recovering from the injury as well. So Corey Ballantyne still starting at cornerback. He did last week as well, but this time Shamar Jean-Charles started at the other side instead of Keyshawn Nixon with the ones. Then to end practice during the press conference with Matt LaFleur, a couple important things he said. Firstly, on tight end Luke Musgrave, he said, quote, "He is different." Also added, "He is a really, really intelligent player who can flat fly." And also LaFleur with a positive update on Eric Stokes. Hopefully before the end of this thing, he'll be out there for some individuals. Doesn't anticipate Stokes doing team before the end of offseason program. So basically what that is saying is he hopes he'll be out there for individuals maybe next OTA that's open to the media, which is next Tuesday. I think that'll be really great to see. Eric Stokes suffered pretty significant injuries, and it's going to be a hard road for him to return to full 100% action. And, you know, the Packers are going to need him eventually in this season as a rotational cornerback. I still think it should be Rasul and Jair on the outside and Keyshawn Nixon in the slot. That's what I think it's going to be to start the season, but it'd be really nice to have Eric Stokes there to rotate him in and out. I'm just hoping he can return to his former self and his former speed, because that's where he won as a cornerback, with his speed. And with that ankle, leg, knee injury, whatever he had, it was a plethora of things. I'm hoping he can return to that. But that does it for all the takeaways of today's OTA practice, day 2 open to the media. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please leave a like down below. It supports my channel a ton. But that about does it for this video. I'll catch you on the next one, and as always, go Packers.